Chapter 8 of Management, an Integrated Approach. Organizational Culture. Part 1. Chapter Outline. Introduction. What is culture? Impact of culture on performance. Levels of organizational culture. Artifacts, beliefs and values. Assumptions. How does culture develop? Role of founders. Role of organizational leaders. Role of teams. Cultural socialization. Culture and crucial moments. Evaluating culture in mergers and acquisitions. Chapter Summary. Learning objectives. Learning Objective 1. Explain the ways in which culture provides the framework and foundation for how work is accomplished and what activities and practices are valued in a firm. An organization's culture provides the parameters by which individuals interact and work. Anyone joining a new firm needs to understand what behaviors and activities are rewarded or punished, what conduct is expected, and how work is completed. Some elements of an organization's culture are obvious: its physical layout and climate, its focus on customer service, or its commitment to innovation, for instance. Other aspects of an organization's culture are less obvious, including the unstated way in which employees interact with and solve problems. Learning Objective 2. Explain how a firm's culture can impact organizational performance. Culture can be a strong driver of performance. Companies such as Cisco and Ritz-Carlton have built cultures based on customer advocacy and support. Google and 3M have built cultures that value and reinforce innovation. In many ways, their cultures have been key drivers of their successes. However, culture can be a double-edged sword. Given its embedded nature, it is often difficult to change. Companies that have strongly entrenched cultures often have more difficulty adapting to environmental changes. In these cases, new leadership is often required. Learning Objective 3. Differentiate between the 3 levels of culture: 1. Artifacts, 2. Beliefs and values, and 3. Assumptions. The 3 levels of culture include: 1. Artifacts. What is visible. 2. Beliefs and values. What is known by members of the organization. And 3. Assumptions. What is embedded in and unique to a firm. Businesses that try to copy another company's culture without fully understanding its hidden elements often fail. They can replicate the visible aspects of the culture, but not the underlying processes. Learning Objective 4. Discuss the ways in which culture is developed, influenced, and socialized in a firm. Culture arises as an organization develops a shared concept of how work should be accomplished and how individuals should interact with each other. An organization's culture is often initially influenced by the actions, beliefs, and assumptions of the founder. Over time, culture becomes more embedded in the organization through a variety of reinforcing mechanisms such as formal statements and creeds, the design of physical space, coaching and mentoring by senior leaders, and reward systems. Learning Objective 5. Explain the role that culture plays when a firm is acquired. Paying attention to culture is particularly important when a firm is acquired or when two firms merge. If the two firms have similar cultures, there is a greater likelihood that there will be less disruption as the firms outline post-merger processes and procedures. When the culture of one firm differs dramatically from another firm, it can be very hard to combine processes and procedures, especially when both firms are of similar size. Sometimes, the acquired firm is allowed to operate independently to enable the combined entity to obtain the greatest possible advantage. In most cases, one culture tends to become dominant and influences the overall firm. Key terms: culture. Culture provides employees with a roadmap and a set of rules for how work gets done and how people interact in a company. Subcultures. Subcultures are cultures that form around geographic or organizational units in a company. Artifacts. Artifacts are visible organizational structures, processes, and languages. Beliefs and values. Beliefs and values are the meanings that members of an organization attach to artifacts. Assumption. Assumptions are behaviors that stemmed from a belief held by a group that is no longer visible, but has become deeply embedded in the organization. Socialization. Socialization is the process of understanding how work gets done and how individuals should interact in an organization. Organizational commitment. Organizational commitment is the desired end result of socialization whereby employees become committed to the organization and its goals. Discussion questions. If an organization seeks to foster a culture of risk-taking, creativity, and innovation, what organizational design choices should they make? How should they think about rewards and reinforcements? If an organization seeks to foster a culture of efficiency and low cost, what design elements should they embrace? Consider Southwest Airlines. They have been able to build a fun, supportive culture while remaining fiscally conservative and cost efficient. How are they able to build this type of culture? Why do companies seek to build organizational commitment from employees? What is the downside to a compliance-based culture? A different view. Culture in a crisis. Extreme challenges and adversity can bring out the best in human beings. This is especially true of the 33 miners who fell victim to a mine collapse in Chile in 2010. They survived an astonishing 69 days underground before they were all safely rescued. As a means of survival, the 33 organized their own democracy. Leaders were assigned to manage the group, facilitate food rationing, lead prayer, monitor health, organize communication with rescuers, and facilitate contact with family and the outside world. All 33 miners had a vote in decisions that were made as they patiently waited to be rescued. Through these rules and guidelines emerged a group culture that, in turn, influenced their behavior, which was shaped by a set of beliefs and assumptions. Observers of this remarkable survival story suggest that their survival can be directly attributed to the organizational culture they created for themselves in a crisis. What lessons can be learned in business from a crisis like the Chilean mine collapse? Identify a company that has survived its own challenges. What similarities are there in organizational culture between that company and the miners? Identify a company that has not survived challenging times. What could they have learned from the miners and their rescuers? Self-reflection. Are you a corporate culture anthropologist? Corporate culture anthropologists are not digging in dirt to retrieve artifacts of ancient civilizations. Instead, they study organizational behavior by systematically observing how an organization's members collectively think, act, and feel as they work to accomplish goals. Consider yourself a corporate culture anthropologist, and respond true or false to the following statements. I recognize that the shared assumptions of appropriate behavior guide the actions of an organization's members. I understand how values and beliefs help organizational members make sense of their roles. I understand how stories and myths convey an organization's values. I realize that an organization has heroes and heroines who are iconic representatives of its culture. I have observed how rituals reinforce an organization's culture. I am familiar with how ceremonies help to socialize organizational members. When analyzing an organization, I look for physical artifacts to understand its culture. I understand how an organization's founder influences its culture. I know that leaders are role models for exemplifying an organization's culture. I can make a mental connection between an organization's culture and its performance. If you answered true to the majority of these questions, you are well on your way to becoming a corporate culture anthropologist. The leadership development journey. Leaders use storytelling as a tool to reinforce cultural assumptions. Storytelling can be an effective leadership practice when it paints a clear picture of the organization's values and how these values enable members to achieve goals. Recall a time when you heard a leader tell a story to align values with goals. How did the story set the stage? Did the story have heroes or heroines? What examples were used to communicate values? Did the story call for certain types of actions? What was the moral of the story? Introduction. It is a place